Original Sin, the Pretty Little Liars reboot just had its final episode premiere, and I have to say, I'm disappointed. In this video, I'm going to explain why it falls short compared to the original show, my issues with the characters and the A reveal, and why overall I think it's overrated and getting more hype than it deserves from critics and reviewers. Apparently being mediocre is good enough, but not for me. Now, this is apparently an unpopular opinion. I was shocked to hear a lot of you guys telling me that actually they really enjoyed the reboot and that I'm one of the few people that doesn't actually like it very much, which really surprised me. I thought more people would agree. So I am putting myself out on the limb a little bit to share something that I know a lot of people are going to disagree with. So I just want to do a disclaimer. If you enjoyed this show, if you liked it more than the original show, that's great. I'm so glad you liked it, and my opinion does not need to reflect your opinion. The original Pretty Little Liars was one of my favorite shows as a teenager, so doing a reboot that I liked just as much would be a hard thing to accomplish, because even though the original show had loads of flaws, it was very messy, it was also iconic and had something about it, a je ne sais quoi, that drew you in, from the beautiful cast to the mystery and the great characters, and that is hard to beat. I realized that one of the reasons why I probably don't like this reboot that much is because the person who worked on it, the creator, also played a big role in creating Riverdale. His name's Roberto Aguirre-Casaka, and I'm sure I've said that wrong. And if you like his work, that's great, but I did not enjoy Riverdale from what I saw of it. It explains a lot in my mind. So let's get started. Let's get controversial. Before we begin, if you want to know what's on my face, the link to all the products I'm wearing will be in the description. Remember to give this video a thumbs up if you like it, and let's get into it. This story focuses on Millwood, a small town next to the original Rosewood where Pretty Little Liars was set. There's a new group of girls in the main roles and a whole new mystery, but the one similarity is that they're being stalked by someone who calls themselves A, and has a lot of similarities to its originator as well. A pair of blonde twins, which reminds me of the Pretty Little Liars books. A new version of the Jenna thing, which the girls will need to combat, and authority figures, especially the police, that use their power in corrupted ways. They even have a reference to Radley Sanitarium and a Pretty Little Liars Halloween themed episode. The Liars' mothers are very central and integral to the plot, and it seems that the reason that A is targeting the girls is actually because of mistakes that their mothers committed when they were teenagers to this girl called Angela Waters. They were bullies, basically, and they did a great job really heightening the importance of the mums in this show, although it does contribute to there being too many subplots going on all at once and too many different things happening all at once, but I appreciated the effort. We're introduced to the main girls. I'll take you through them. Imogen is almost like a final girl in horror movies, because the thing that's different about this reboot is that it goes more for slasher and horror vibes, with a lot of horror movie references sprinkled throughout. Imogen is pregnant due to an R word, and she doesn't know who the father is, but she's trying to figure it out, and she's the one that's the most scared, I think, and affected by A's threats, because she keeps having these really vivid nightmares. And also, her mother dies in the pilot episode. She seemingly took her own life, but Imogen questions whether her mum really would have left her in that way or if she was murdered. The next character is called Tabby, who's an aspiring director and movie buff, especially horror movies, and she thinks that she was targeted by the same guy who impregnated Imogen. So her and Imogen form quite a close bond over this mutual tragedy and trauma that happened to them. We've also got Mouse, who's the youngest out of all the liars, and has a real mystery around who her dad is, and she spends a lot of time in the virtual world. So she's like the female version of Caleb from the original show, because she's all tech savvy. Another girl is called Noah, who's trying to get her life back on track after a summer spent in juvenile detention. And the final girl, my favorite, is Farron, who's a disciplined ballerina, and she has a very controlling mother. The iconic A text messages have returned, of course, but this time the girls react reactions to getting the messages are actually a lot more true to life, which I really appreciated, and it was definitely an improvement from the original. In the original show, when the girls got a text, they just stare at their phone in shock and read it aloud at the same time, and there'd be this slow zoom away from them, and it was just very odd and over dramatic, and not really how you'd react if you got a weird text. Whereas with these girls, especially because they're in the more tech savvy generation and they know how people will troll you online or send stupid messages, when they were first getting weird messages on their phone from someone called A, they're like, ugh, who is this? Blocked. God, it's A again, oh no. And it was so much more realistic rather than them all in unison, like reading the message, and it was very weird. So I'm glad that they improved that. But I have a lot of issues with Original Sin. There's some good stuff I'll talk about, but overall, I think it's very average. It's not great. It's just okay. And I don't know why so many people are saying it's good. I don't understand that. I found the first episodes in particular not even mediocre or okay. They were awful, like genuinely insufferable to watch. And it got better as the show went on, for sure. The dialogue got less cringy, and I found myself really quite enjoying episodes 7, 8, 9, 10. But at the beginning, God no, it was like one of the worst things I've seen in a long time. It was so cringe. It had these constant vivid flashbacks that were meant to be scary, popping up in your face every 2 seconds at inappropriate moments with really dramatic music like dun, dun, dun. And it was just overkill. That's not how you do horror. If you're gonna do horror, go for it. That's what the original Pretty Little Liars could have done really well. But if you're gonna go for horror, commit to it and do it well. Build the suspense, build a sense of unease. Don't just go da-da, da-da. Scenes that were meant to be dramatic and scary often came across as comedic, and there were many points where I was saying to my parents who were watching it with me, was that scary? Because that was funny. And the dialogue was just awful. Like for about 5 episodes, genuinely awful. And when trying to depict the very online culture that exists in the modern day, the show just didn't know how to do it. It's so clear that it was written by older people who don't understand how teenagers talk. One of the characters said, seriously, how has Karen not been cancelled yet? The original Pretty Little Liars had, for the most part, I mean, it was a bit silly sometimes, but overall, very normal dialogue, the way teen girls would actually talk to each other. And if they were more educated characters, then that would come through in the way they spoke, like Spencer. She used a lot of big words and stuff, and it worked. Whereas in this, it's just so over the top. There are these constant, very over the top references to movies like Hereditary, I think Lady Bird, that movie with Emma Watson, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Hereditary, like just these modern movies as if they're trying to prove how up to date this show is and how relevant it is, which got really annoying and honestly very distracting. Original Sin takes itself so seriously, and that's part of the problem. And I remember watching Scream Queens, which has very similar vibes to this show, like very ridiculous chase scenes, stupid dialogue, but the whole point of Scream Queens is it's a comedy horror. It's meant to be hilarious and ridiculous. That's why season 1 of Scream Queens was so entertaining, because it knew what it was and it stuck to it. You cannot compare Original Sin to Scream Queens. Scream Queens was a comedy. Original Sin is just ridiculously overdramatic and trying way too hard to be scary, and it's not meant to be funny. Another part of the show taking itself too seriously and then it verging on ridiculous is the swearing. Now, the girls in the original show definitely probably needed to swear more. There were lots of moments where I felt like swearing would have been appropriate, but they couldn't include it in the show, so they didn't do it. So I liked that in this show, sometimes in scary situations, the girls would swear, but the problem is that they're doing it constantly in the beginning of the show especially, and it's just so bad. Constant swearing, and it comes across as really crass and like they're not even trying to come up with actual dialogue. Like the way they talk makes them all sound stupid. They're never using any slightly more educated words, like ever. Or sometimes there would be no room for subtext because the dialogue would spell everything out. Like, he and I have hated each other since the 1st grade, which is also really annoying because it's like the show thinks we're dumb. or there was this performative wokeness through the dialogue about racism or sexism. And as good as it is to cover those themes, when they're really spelling it out, it's just clumsy. That ties into my next point about why I didn't love this show, which is that it tries to tackle every sensitive topic you could think of under the sun, like grooming, SA, misogyny, microaggressions, taking your own life, bullying, teen pregnancy, like so many different things. And it's just a bit much. They just couldn't go into enough depth to cover those topics with the respect they deserve. So as a result, it's a bit all over the place. How can you really properly examine and dissect the different angles of those topics when you've only got 10 episodes? I don't think you can. I do appreciate though the show's effort in trying to discuss important or serious topics. Like, it's good they tried at least, because I remember in the original show, the way they handled race, for example, was really bad. Like, every black character they had was just killed off, often in quite a gruesome way. And out of all the main girls, like, it's a very white cast aside from Shay Mitchell, but that's not very diverse. At least this show was more diverse. And the original failed on issues when it came to trans people. It failed when it came to the main couple on the show, which was obviously a teacher manipulating and seducing his student to be in a relationship with him, and then they get married at the end. At least this show wasn't doing that, I guess. That is an improvement. But another thing I didn't like about this reboot compared to the original is the fashion. Now, I know that they're a bit poorer than in Rosewood, but that doesn't mean you need to dress disgusting just because you've got less money. And some of the outfits were so over the top and ridiculous, especially Imogen's pregnancy outfits. Like, what the hell was that? Like, it was so dumb. And I felt like they could have tried harder to at least make the girls look good, especially when they went to parties and stuff. They just looked like trash. Actually, I've got a cute outfit today. Can I show you? I don't really know if I look like a Pretty Little Liars character, really. Maybe Hannah, but look how cute it is. And I've got this little top. So that's so cute. It's got length to it. How cute's that? But it wasn't just the costumes they changed, which I could, I guess, get over if I close my eyes, maybe. It was the general aesthetic. The original show's vibe and aesthetic is very particular. Pristine, creepy, dollhouse vibes. Very fancy and beautiful, which obviously juxtaposes with the ugly secrets people are keeping. And that was literally in the show's marketing. Beautiful girls, ugly secrets. Beautiful town, ugly secrets. Like, that's the whole point. It's Pretty Little Liars. That's the intrigue of the show, right? Is how could these beautiful, rich people be hiding so much? The original Liars looked like supermodels, incredible makeup, beautiful outfits, and they seemed to have it all held together, but underneath they were really struggling and had very messy relationships and lives. And this show, Original Sin, just doesn't, like, what's the point if you can't capture that original essence of the show, which is what made it so good in the first place? They just don't have the Pretty Little Liars vibe. So they keep being referred to as the Liars, but they don't feel like Pretty Little Liars to me at all. In Original Sin, the aesthetics are very run down and grungy, and they're trying too hard to make it creepy through the lighting. Like, it's always dark, every damn scene. I did ballet for like 13 years and I've never seen such a dark ballet studio, and I've still got more issues. I'm not done. You thought I was done? I'm not even beginning. I also have quite a few thoughts about the main girls, because they are nothing compared to my beautiful Aria and Spencer and Hannah. And sure, they weren't perfect by far, but like, they were still interesting. Whereas in this show, I just can't get behind any of the main girls, really. They're okay. And their boyfriends too. Boring as hell. I've never been so bored. Every time one of their boyfriends came on screen and they were like, do you want to go to the dance with me? And I was like, oh, I don't care. How crazy is that? They're so boring in this. And this is the first season. They should not already be boring. They do not have a right to be this boring. The girls did grow on me as the show went on, for sure. I found them more bearable. But in the first 5 episodes, I didn't just find them okay. I genuinely disliked them. Like, I found them really annoying, especially Madison, who plays Imogen, the main girl in the show. I felt like her acting was so over the top, like she was on Broadway or something. She lashes out at Tabby's mum, which really she had no right to do because Tabby's mum was the one who took her in and looked after her when Imogen's mum died. And she ruins plans to sell her old house just because. And she's given a moment to cry in frustration about her mother being gone when they're trying to like summon her from the dead, and then she starts screaming at her and crying, and it was just so embarrassing to watch, like genuinely so over the top. It was like a farce. And then she kind of pulled everyone into this scheme against Karen, saying they should get revenge. And then when the plan backfired, she was the first to be like, oh, maybe this was a bad idea. And I was like, what is your end game, girl? Like, what did you think would happen? And then she has these really weird, occasionally sinister glances at the camera. And at the end of the first episode, it was even worse. Like, it was so cringy and pathetic. They zoomed in on her face and she was like, we should kill Karen. And it was so cringe. Like, no, Spencer would never. The so-called mean girl Queen Bee Karen is actually one of the most pathetic attempts at showing a bully that I've ever seen. No bullies behave like that. It's cringe and lame. And Allison, the one from the original Pretty Little Liars, was definitely over the top and kind of ridiculous, but in like a really iconic way, you know, and she was still a great villain for sure. Whereas you cannot, like, if people are trying to compare Karen to Allison and say she's like Allison 2.0, no, that's actually an insult to Allison. Like, I'm insulted. Allison was a badass. She could have had the potential to be one of the best villains ever had they kept her that way and not niceified her at the end of the show. Like, she was just a total bad bitch, but like in the best of ways, like just so good. The way that she came back to Rosewood and then was saying she had feelings for Emily, but then it was so easy for her to turn on the girls, was just like, so good. Like, you just could never trust her. And you compare her to Karen in this. Like, Karen, her name is Karen. Karen, really? Also, the friendships, just not that believable to me. And I had issues with the girls' friendships in the original Pretty Little Liars, but in this reboot, again, they haven't really made an improvement for me in showing how the girls are friends or what it is they like about each other, aside from maybe Imogen and Tabby. But the girls interact for the first time in detention in episode 1, not really knowing each other that well. And after that, they just hit it off. Like, they just are a friend group. It's not really a slow friendship build. It's like insta love, which doesn't make sense to me. By the next episode, they literally exclusively hang out with each other, aside from their boyfriends, obviously. And there's this montage of them getting ready for the dance in episode 2, dancing and singing as if they've been friends for years. It's hard to believe that these girls barely know each other. And it's so dumb because in the original show, the girls become friends again pretty quickly by the second episode, but it made sense because they actually used to be best friends and then separated, and then an event brought them back together again and made them stronger. But they did have a pre-existing relationship. They already knew each other. Also, in the original show, all the girls had things to hide and they were all involved together in the Jenna thing, which brought their friendship closer almost because of this dirty little secret. And it meant that when A started blackmailing them, they genuinely felt like they had stuff to lose. Emily was worried that people would find out that she was gay, and Aria was worried that Ezra would be sent to jail for his relationship with her, and they had genuine things at stake. Whereas in this show, it's not really about them being pretty little liars. Like, sure, their mums are liars, and the girls do one bad thing, which is maybe the equivalent to the Jenna thing, because they decide to bully Karen back and leak an embarrassing video of her, but their parents find out about it basically straight away and they get in a lot of trouble. So it's not really like a secret that A can hold against them for years or anything. So again, it almost renders the show a bit, not pointless, but how are they the new liars when I don't even really know what they're lying about? Like, there were a few things, sort of. Now let's talk about the finale and how it compared to the Pretty Little Liars finale in season 7, which was obviously terrible, but was the reboot better? I will say that the original Sin finale was definitely better, way better than the finale we got in the Pretty Little Liars finale of the whole show in season 7, for sure. But there were quite a few season finales in Pretty Little Liars that were definitely better than this one. Because in Original Sin, the finale was okay, it was fine, but it could have been better. There were some genuinely scary scenes. Imogen's being chased by A, who's wearing this hideous mask, and it's really scary. Like, the mask they're wearing is scary, and seeing them following her through the graveyard when she's actually gonna give birth because her waters broke is so like terrifying. And I like that she actually had to fight him off and there was no one coming to save her. That definitely upped the stakes, but other parts of the finale were very weak. And the reason why, I think it could have been a great finale actually, but the reason why it was weak was because of the A reveal. The first A in Pretty Little Liars, who was Mona, who I think was revealed as A in season 2, she was the best A because she was a teenage girl, and you could see that in the way that she was targeting the liars in this petty sort of way, and she wouldn't have had the physical strength to assault them. Whereas in this reboot, A often attacks the girls or people in very physical ways and will literally strangle people, and they have like a lot of strength. They're a big person. Clearly couldn't be a woman, to be honest, to have that level of strength unless they're a bodybuilder, you know? So I always had suspicions with this reboot that the villain would be someone older and more sinister, like maybe an adult. And as it turns out, I was right, because the mastermind behind it all is the principal. Really? It's not terrible. It's not the worst person they could have picked by far, but they had a lot of other okay suspects. Why did they go for him? We don't even know this guy. He's the one who plans it all, but his son is the one who actually carries out the killings. His son's called Archie. Archie's the one in the mask, the big strong one. And Archie's literally this faceless killing machine who has this hunger for bloodlust. And if his dad says, kill her, Archie's like, okay, I'll kill them. Just almost robotic. We don't even get to see his face. We don't know Archie at all, which tells me they learned nothing from the criticisms people had of the original Pretty Little Liars, which is that we want it to be someone we goddamn know, not some random stranger. It's lazy. Also, I don't like that they made Archie this robotic killing machine who just follows what his dad asks him to do, and he has no personality. Like, I know he's a serial killer, I know he likes killing people, but in reality, serial killers like Ted Bundy can seem normal, have normal jobs like being a lawyer or something, and have a family, and actually underneath they've got this secret sinister life no one knows about, but they could pass as a normal person, and they do have like a personality. And there weren't really any clues that it was going to be Archie, because we don't know who Archie is. And at least in the original show, even with the really bad A reveal they had for Spencer's twin, at least there were clues ongoing that there was a twin, and it was like the most popular theory at the time that one of the girls was going to have a twin. And as for the principal, that wasn't any better. The principal does sort of have a personality, like we know him, but he's only appeared for about 6 minutes in the show. He's really boring and cringy and pathetic, and he just doesn't have the sinister A vibes to me. Also in the finale, everything was wrapped up neatly, almost a bit too neatly. Like, all the mysteries are basically solved, that's it. And it doesn't make me particularly intrigued for the next season. The only question left up in the air is, where's Archie gone? He's still out there, but I don't care about Archie. He sounds like a pet penguin. His name's stupid. I don't care. A in general, even before the finale, the way they were threatening the girls just wasn't that impressive. Like, when the original Pretty Little Liars aired, technology wasn't as big a thing. If you saw the girls' phones in the premiere episode, very basic technology. Instagram wasn't really a thing. And then as the show progressed, around season 7, the technology was updated way more. But at the beginning, there wasn't. And so there were less ways for A to track them. Whereas this show has way more opportunities because it's set in the modern day, where we've got tracking on our phones, we've got Instagram, so many ways that you can be hunted down. A could have been so much more of an ominous presence that you never actually saw because they had access to the girls through the internet. A would love that. It's like the best breeding ground for bad behavior, just through social media and hacking and things like that. Whereas in this show, A doesn't really seem to do that much because they're more physically present, like hiding under the stairs or chasing people around. I just don't think that was necessary. If it was going to be like that, why set the show in the modern day at all? Just set it in like the 1920s or something. I genuinely love the original show, by the way. That's why I've got a whole Pretty Little Liars playlist critiquing it and talking about it, and I'll link that playlist in the description. But I do it from a place of love and care because I genuinely love the show. But in the original show, it could be really tacky. About 15 people at some point wore the black hoodie. Basically everyone we knew at some point was A, which makes it seem less important or significant. There were lots of unanswered questions and lots of dumb plot twists, and I do believe that Original Sin succeeded where the original didn't, in the sense that it had a more cohesive sense of structure and a sense of direction. Like, they were actually going to answer our questions and they weren't just going to chuck in random stupid plot twists out of nowhere. And that's one thing I like about Original Sin, is they have an idea, they answer it, and maybe it's a bit too wrapped up, but at least they actually explained stuff and it was logical somewhat, like it made sense. Another thing that I do appreciate about Original Sin, which is why it's not a bad show to me, is because of the way that it handled Imogen and Tabby being RAPE'd. The executive producer said it was important to us that we tell some grounded horror stories, and SA was a topic we couldn't shy away from. Statistically, in a friend group of 5 female friends, it's unfortunately quite possible that 2 of them could be assaulted and then bond over that trauma. And she said that they wanted to tell the story sensitively without making it exploitative. And I thought they actually did a really good job. Like, they didn't depict it happening to the girls in a really gory way. They just showed the emotional after effects. They definitely did a better job of handling it than 13 Reasons Why did, and better than the original Pretty Little Lies did too, because I remember in the original when Hannah was harassed by Zach, who's this grown man, Ella's boyfriend, Hannah was very upset and she tried to explain to Aria why it was wrong, because she felt like he was taking advantage of her and she was vulnerable at the time, and Zach was predatory, so he knew that. And rather than Aria listening, she started blaming Hannah, slut-shaming her, saying she asked for it and not listening, which was really mean and bad friendship. Whereas in Original Sin, when Tabby and Imogen talked about what happened to them and how Imogen became pregnant, the girls listened and then they were so supportive and sweet, and they said, "We understand, I'm so sorry." And it was a really nice bonding moment for their friendship, as opposed to like blaming their friends for it happening to them. I also love that for once the perpetrator was a seemingly nice guy. He's literally the trope of the nice guy. Everyone just says how bloody nice he is all the time, and he seems to think he's really nice as well, and have this idea that he's a really good person because he wants to be a good person, but yet the stuff he's doing is wrong. He's actually trusted by both of his victims, and they would never suspect him of doing that. And I thought that was such an important message to send, rather than the show making it about a jock who did it to them or some creepy weirdo in math class who no one likes. Because to be honest, predators can live amongst us and sometimes they don't actually seem that predatory. When the girls confront him about it, making it all about him, like, "Oh, but Tabby, you didn't like me back when I thought you would," and me. He's just living in this victim mode, almost as if he's the one that was hurt because Tabby didn't return his stupid crush and therefore he had the right to violate her. And also there were clues there for sure that he was not to be trusted, so I thought that whole subplot was actually really good. However, I do have a huge issue with Aria and Ezra being mentioned at the end of the show as being the parents to adopt Imogen's baby, because why would you trust Ezra with raising a baby? Like, the show goes on and on about feminism and empowerment and anti-grooming and don't hurt women and all this, and then they kind of backtrack at the end by saying, "Isn't it so nice that Aria and Ezra will raise the baby?" Because that's like romanticizing Aria and Ezra's relationship, and Tabby's saying they seem so nice, and Imogen's like, "Yeah, they seem so nice, I'm so excited for them to raise my baby, and they're even gonna let me be involved in the child's life, they're such nice people." Keeping in mind that Ezra is the biggest predator in the original show. He literally groomed Aria into being with him. It really goes against the message of the show. That's so dumb. It makes me think that you don't really understand the themes you're talking about. Why not just say that Spencer and Toby are gonna adopt the baby, or Hannah and Caleb, or Mona and her boyfriend? I don't know, like, why Aria and Ezra? So yeah, those are my thoughts on Original Sin, the Pretty Little Lies reboot. It wasn't all bad. There were a few standout scenes for sure and some clever twists, but it has a lot of flaws and I don't think I would rewatch it. And I don't know why some people are saying it's better than the original, because despite the many flaws of the original, I just enjoy watching that show way more. And I think it does a better job of pulling you in and intriguing you than this one does. It felt like it's got nothing to do with Pretty Little Lies at all, really, but they just wanted to use the name Pretty Little Lies in the marketing to bring out the original fan base who are already very dedicated to the show so that they get some viewers coming in. But I think the show may be better if they just made it its own thing rather than calling it Pretty Little Lies in the title, because honestly it's so different in so many ways. It doesn't really strike me as something in the Pretty Little Lies universe because so many things about the vibe were different. Maybe it would be better being its own show like Riverdale or The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina with this sort of spooky, grungy aesthetic. But I think the viewers of the original Pretty Little Lies are very dedicated, and so we will always be excited if we hear that a reboot is coming. We will always be supportive, and I don't want people to like exploit that as a cash grab, knowing that the original fan base is genuinely so loyal. And we'll watch anything that comes out if it has Pretty Little Lies written on it, because it was such a great show, you know, and it was like 10 years ago now, but we still like it and we still want to see reboots. But let me know what you think in the comments, guys. Make sure to subscribe and I will see you for my next video.